Assalamu alaikum. Wa
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته Sheikh.
I love that picture of Angelo Sule. Man, might have to have a class on that a little bit more right there.
Oh, please do. Please do.
Walaikum assalam. Wa rahmatullahi barakatuhu.
Islam to the Moors in the building. Indeed. It's only right. Moors in the building, and Sheikh Ahmed Obama calls this particular brotherhood the Mooridullah. Alhamdulillah. Get chapter 5 pulled up here. I'll open up with a quick prayer and some salawat. And chapter 5 is good. Chapter 5 in the Alchemy of Happiness, Imam Ghazali titles this one concerning music and dancing as aids to religious life. He said as aids to religious life, meaning like something that helps out or adds on or builds on, makes stronger the religious life of the person that is either using music or dancing to get to the next stage in religious life, get to the next station. I know I can't be the only one who didn't had a Muslim walk up to me and be like, brother, you pulled up to the mosque with music playing, brother. Did you not mute? No music was haram? Or whoa, no. Don't, why are you dancing? You know, dancing and moving one's body in such a way is haram. We as Muslims are not supposed to do that. Imam Ghazali busts it wide open in chapter 5 concerning music and dancing as an aid to something that can help or to benefit religious life. So I love it. Any righteous and pious Muslim tell you anything about music being haram or against anything that is Islamic, because the answer to it can be found in just a few places, and the primary places where people that might be saying things like that probably should look. We begin with the Quran. However, there's not many teachings in the Quran itself about do's and don'ts, halal or haram in regards to music and dancing. But in the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and in the Hadith, honestly, no matter which one of the 4 schools of thought or madhabs the person might be studying, there'll still be some in there that talk about dancing. Now, to open everything on up, it's only right to Al-Fatiha. Billahi min ash-shaytanir rajim. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi wa huwa al-aliyyul azim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim. Ghairil maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Amin. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Muqaddimatul khidmah. Qafda lil mufmalati. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد دار الحكمة وسلم عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وخني بجاهه في الدارين كل نقمة. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد دار الإله وسلم عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وخني بجاهه في الدارين كل داع. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد دعوة إبراهيم وسلم عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وزقني بجاهه علما وعملا بقابل سليم. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد دعوة النبيين وسلم عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وكل بجاهه كل وقت وحين. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد دال الخيرات. Run that one back. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد دال الخيرات وسلم عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وعلم بجاه مشكاليات آمين يا رب العالمين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Yeah. That particular salawat probably had about like 80 more verses or so in it. And I'll show you guys why we stopped on that last one that had to be repeated. And we'll explain why before we get into the text. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina wa Maulana. So, oh Allah, send prayers of peace upon Sayyidina, our master, and Maulana, Lord Muhammad, Daili Khairat. That's what we had to rewind, because what that first part of that salawat says is Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina wa Maulana Muhammadin Da'ilil Khairat. Da'ilil Khairat is a name of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, which means the guide to goodness, which was the name of that particular book if we were to flip it around. Da'ilil Khairat, or in Arabic, from Arabic English, it means the guide to goodness. You might be able to find this one online or when we get done with class if we have it in the Google Drive folder. Because I don't know who this Sheikh Sufi guy is that got all these books. I don't know who this Sheikh Sufi guy is that has the Diallo Khairat, which is also a 7-day weird or a 7-day prayer on the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, that was just taken from one name of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Good Lord, how does Sheikh Bamba put these qasidas and salawats together in that way? Definitely. Amazon, a few other book sources. If you I got equal PDFs and like paperbacks and hardbacks, but when it comes to stuff like this, if I'm read it every day, 7 days a week, I'd much rather have the book. I can sticky note it, put little bookmarks in it and translate and whatnot. The PDF we can share for quick reference. Inshallah. Yes, Jarabah. This particular book is in English. For those Arabic readers, I'm sure the Dalil Khairat is online, accessible in Arabic. I'm not too sure if we have one that's transliterated, but that'll be a good thing to look for. But oh Allah, bestow your blessings and barakat and mercy on the master of messengers and the Imam of the God-fearing, the seal of the prophets, our master Muhammad, the slave and messenger, Imam of the good, the leader of the good, the messenger of mercy. God, look, let me put that book down before we won't even get into Imam Ghazali tonight. Stop it. But Dalil Khairat, Dail Kayrat, or for better Arabic transliteration, it would be Khayrat. So look that one up on the book sources and then see if we have it in the Google Drive. We'll share too. Concerning music and dancing as aids to the religious life. Now, has anybody ever had that happen though? Has anybody ever had Muslim walk up to you and tell you something negative about the fact that you were listening to music, or you might have had headphones in and he caught you, bobbing to whatever song it was that you were listening to? It's an unfortunate occurrence. I hate to say it like that, but for us in the West, knowing what dancing and music can do for a person spiritually, for someone that's like a brother on the path with you, to walk up and be like, "Stop it, Allah, brother Bilal." Like we pulled up into the masjid playing some music like That wasn't Quran recitation, brother. Do you know that this is not halal. This is haram, or you know, tell some story or quote someone that says that music is bad, dancing is bad. You're a Muslim, don't listen to music. You're a Muslim, don't dance. The only thing you should play in your car is the Quran. You astaghfirullah. Allah told Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, do not make Islam difficult on the believers. And if Allah don't fit in the heavens nor the earth, but he only fits in the heart of the true believer, it's like, don't make this difficult for me, having to dwell inside a human body. Like, I'm about to fall down here and manifest inside of this physical body. And on the way down, I'm going to forget that I'm Allah. But Muhammad, you coming with this message to this person that has Allah in his heart that just don't know it. Don't make delivering that message to him difficult to to aid him in the process of remembering Allah. Because remembrance of Allah is the greatest. But Imam Ghazali starts off in chapter 5 by saying that the heart of man has been so constituted by the Almighty, just like that, like a flint. It contains a hidden fire which is evoked by music and harmony and renders man beside himself with ecstasy. So this light of Allah is like a flint that when it's lit and this person is fully engulfed in the music and dance that he's doing to glorify, give praise to, or experience Allah, right? Imam Ghazali says it renders man beside himself with ecstasy. That's almost like a HR appropriate way of saying, all right, now you see them Sufis with them tall hats spinning around in circles over there. You don't, because none of those Sufis are in their body. They recited the name of Allah and spun around so many times in such a perfect fashion to where boop, they pop out of the body. The shell is down there spinning. Ain't no Sufis in those bodies. So Imam Ghazali is saying that when you're going through this process of listening to music or dancing per se, that in this case, in that example, this Sufi is doing it in a very particular manner that every single piece of it is a part of the whole. And the part of the whole is remembrance of Allah, closeness to Allah, experiencing Allah, seeing a divine manifestation. Not that that's the intention, but if the focus is on Allah, we can't fully encompass Allah to say what is or isn't going to come because we are working to get into that moment. And Imam Ghazali says those harmonies that we try to match when we're doing that, they're essentially echoes of that higher world of beauty that we call the world of spirits, or in Arabic, the Izati, the abode of Allah. They remind man of his relationship to that world when he's in that point, he's in that state, we'll call it. When you're listening to music or dancing, in our case, it's Kasaj playing in the background. And when a certain line hits, if I was able to hop up out of this chair fast as I was when I was able about it, I probably would, and be running up and down the hallway like I used to, because some of those lines or some of these Bamba Kasads are real deep, and they hit they hit right here, right where Allah is. And when that flint lights up, just like you said, the heart of man has been so constituted by Allah, the Almighty, that just like a flint, it contains a hidden fire, hidden batin, name of Allah, which is evoked. It is brought forth, is brought outward by music and harmony. In the beginning, I want to shake off Bamba's Kasides, and now I'm gonna have to find it now because it's brought to the forefront. He says, after the Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, of course, said, we offer to the remover of pain wonderful laudations that put measure and rhyme to shame. Close the Qaside book. Did Sheikh Ahmed Obama just said, we offer to Allah poetry and Qasides composed so beautifully that they put rhythm and measure to shame? the tools that we use to determine the cadence of what we're listening to. What we're listening to is so deep that you can't even use common tools to break it down. Shake out new bomber. Jeff. Imam Ghazali builds on that same thing when he says that when you get in that state, the effect of music and dancing is way deeper. It's deeper in proportion as in regards to the natures on which they act. They're simple and prone to emotion, meaning when you're in that that we can call it a vulnerable state. Like, how can somebody that's making dhikr while standing, sitting, or lying down, when Allah says, "Those who praise me standing, sitting, or lying down" in the Quran, like, I'm standing and moving, and I just so happen to be bouncing to the cadence of the qaside that's going on because it sounds melodic, but I'm not dancing. Almost like those Sufis spinning around in the circles with the super tall fez on. I'm in the process of trying to dive so deep within to a point to where I know there's a source in here that knows exactly what Sheikh Bamba is saying inside those qasides. But consciously, I can't do it. Human being can't figure that out. But there's something in here that knows what he put in those qasides. And when you meditate and get deep enough and that vibe matches, it's almost like the Islamic Holy Ghost, like Sufi Holy Ghost. Imam Ghazali says that to flip and compare now, we'll bump into a word. Accordingly, there has been much dispute among theologians as to the lawfulness of music. Of course, the pastors and the rabbis and the imams are going to tell you that it's haram, brother. You shouldn't be flailing around as such. There's one particular sect that Imam Ghazali is talking about, and when he calls them Zahirites, which is also from one of the 99 names of Allah. But that particular name is the outward or manifest. But in describing a particular group in their interpretation and how they teach Islam, a Zahirite is a literalist. Zahirite is a exoteric teacher. Zahirite is not one that's going to be diving into esoterics, right? Because they have to dive deeper into these scripts that some particular schools of thought may have just been taught at right there. Alhamdulillah. So the best thing that's beautiful in the sight of Allah is when you learn Islam or learn Quran and teach it to someone. So those Zahirites are teaching Quran to people. They're meeting them where they're at, alhamdulillah. But to turn around and say that it's unlawful to others who are deeper than that, astaghfirullah. Because them Zahirites doing that, they're holding that God is altogether incommensurable with man. And then they deny man the possibility of really being able to feel what the love of God is by the love that we have for God and have that connection. A Zahirite or a literalist or someone that only gets it at the exoteric level in regards to like music and dance is just saying that no, you're a man. Nothing special about what's going on the inside of you. So you as a body dancing like that is haram. And try to tell them that you're a spirit inside the body, but at that point it's just start for a line, brother. You know, I didn't know as such. Like Sheikh Suki says, the Jedi mind trick. Kind of have to flip it and then kind of stop, be humble. When they go away, turn your music back on and stop. But how can somebody like that deny a man the possibility of feeling that love and that connection to Allah during the process where even if he is kind of moving in his chair to the rhythm of this qaside that's going on, there's nothing but Quran and Sunnah inside of those qasides. So the fact that I'm doing something that outwardly looks haram, the inward state of the person's heart is what really should be trying to be, I won't say looked at, can't look at it, but You're gonna have to try to feel it. You know? Imam Ghazali goes on about these types of people. Like if he does feel that what he thinks is love to his creator is just merely a projection or a shadow cast by his own fantasy or reflection of love to another creature by trying to show off to someone. Music and dancing, according to those types of people, have only to do with the creature and love, meaning something exoteric, another person. You're trying to show off to another person, and that's how they're understanding this topic on music and dance. And to them, it's unlawful in regards to it being a religious exercise. But if we ask them what the meaning of that love to God or love of God or love from God that they're trying to tell us that we're not going to get, which is enjoined by the religious law that they are also teaching from, they replied that it means something simple as obedience and worship. So to be able to love God, Allah, and to be able to receive love from Allah, it's just solely obedience and worship. Imam Ghazali says this is an error which we hope to refute or confute in a later chapter dealing with the love of God. So he kind of gives a hint. One of the next 3 chapters is going to be on the love of God. But at present, we content ourselves with saying that music and dance and don't put in the heart what is not there already. Message, but it only is a fan to the flame of those dormant emotions. And those dormant emotions are latent potentialities. Those latent potentialities are those 99 names of Allah that reside right here. Polish up all 99 of those windows, the light of all of those 99 names of Allah will be able to reflect outward. And Imam Ghazali says in the stages of purification of people that do things in regards to what's already in their heart. Therefore, if a man has in his heart that to love God, which the law he enjoins, or the Sunnah, or the Sharia, it is perfectly lawful. This music and dancing topic is perfectly lawful if the man has in his heart that to love God and the law that God or Allah enjoins us to indulge in while trying to reach him, then it is perfectly lawful. Dance, sing, close your eyes, and shout La ilaha illallah to the top of your lungs. What's going on the outside of you at that moment, it doesn't really matter as soon as you say it La. Because in Arabic, La means no, not whatever is about to come after that. In this case, ilaha, there is nobody else on the outside of me judging me for dancing to the rhythm that I can feel in this kaside. Like them brothers singing it and it sounds like music, and I can't help but to move and sing along with them and do a zikr in the background. But brother Ahmed over there, this ish look haram. Imam Ghazali says that on the other hand, 3 types of people. This first types of person has that love of Allah in his heart. He knows it's already there. And whatever he's doing in regards to this music and dance is just to further evoke that love of God that he has in his heart, that love of Allah that he has in his heart. That window, one of those attributes from the 99 names, he's trying to polish up a little bit so that light reflects out. Second type, on the other hand, if this particular person's heart is full of sensual desires, music and dancing will only increase them, and therefore are unlawful. And he'll kind of explain some inner ways to be able to tell, looking at self, wait a minute, am I trying to show off or am I doing this for Allah? Stop it. The third type, if this person just listens to music and dances, is just a simple matter of amusement, right? It's neither lawful nor unlawful. You mean if I'm just riding in the car and I just got some music playing because they put radios in every single car nowadays, and I just so happen to pull up to a red light and a Muslim brother's beside me and he hears music and he decides to call me and tell me to turn it off because it's haram? I'm not dancing to it. I'm not singing to it. It's indifferent to me. So there's nothing haram about it. There's nothing even there to measure whether the music and the dance are halal or haram in that moment because I'm just driving. But for the mere fact that they are pleasant to a person doesn't necessarily make them unlawful any more than the pleasure of listening to the singing of birds or looking at green grass or listening to water running is unlawful. I love that because the innocent character of music, looking at it from that level, the singing of birds, looking at green grass and hearing music, these Sufis, I tell you, and listening to running water at a river, those are also types of, you can call them music. It's a tone, there's a frequency, there's a vibration, there's a sound, and there's a natural rhythm to it. It's arrhythmic because you'll never hear the same splash in this river, no matter how long you sit beside it. But that's the beautiful thing about it. Allah allowed me to hear this one type of splash 3 minutes ago, and I'll never get to hear that splash again because it was a bird dropping something from a tree. If I don't sit here long enough and another bird drops something from a tree and makes another splash similar to that, I'll probably never hear that sound again. But at that moment, I'm not enamored in the water. I'm not enamored in the the symmetry of the water coming up. I'm enamored in the fact that I'm there to even get to experience it or witness it at all. So even if that's haram, if someone looks at being outside as a form of music per se, because it's something you can listen to, meditate on, and get closer to Allah, it can't be because la ilaha illallah. But show me somewhere where Allah is not at, and then I'll go do my haram stuff over there. Now this part, kind of glad Imam Ghazali pulled this particular hadith in the next paragraph because I was thinking about quoting it, but then as I was reading through this last week, it's like, well, he kind of already put it there as an example because I think this one will hit for us pretty good in regards to the same topic, music and dance. Now he's going to hadith, right? He's going to an attributed saying of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, or something that a verified person through the chain of transmission was sitting right beside him and saw him either do or not do. And that's been verified all the way back up to us. Now, the innocent character of music and dancing, regarded just merely as a pastime, he says, is also corroborated by an authentic tradition, which we have from Lady Aisha, may peace be upon her, who narrates one festival day, some Negroes, poor choice of words, one festival day, some Black people, some Africans, some Ethiopians, some Abyssinians, some other descriptive term, they were performing in a mosque. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said to me, do you wish to see them? He's speaking to Aisha because you can probably see or feel that there might be some curiosity, like, what is that going on the other side of that wall? The Prophet Muhammad turns to Aisha, peace be upon her, and asks, do you want to see them? He already knows they're playing music and they're dancing, but Prophet still asks her because something piqued her curiosity about what was going on inside that mosque. So she said, yeah. In this hadith, accordingly, the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, lifted up Aisha with his hand so that she could look through the window. And she said she looked on so long that he said more than once, haven't you had enough? Now, a quick comparison, because he comes right back with another hadith about music and dance, also still involving a tradition or a saying from Aisha, peace be upon her. It says, one festival day, two girls came to my house and started to play and sing. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, came in to lay down on the couch, and he turned his face away. Presently, Abu Bakr alayhi salam entered the house, and he sees the girls playing, and he exclaimed, "What? What? The pipe of Satan in the Prophet's house?" Whereupon the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said, while he's still looking away, he's not even paying the music or the dance any attention. He may be doing a zikr up here. But when he heard Abu Bakr say this, wait, what? Music and dance in the Prophet's house? The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said, let them alone, Abu Bakr, for this is a festival day. This is a festival day. Today is a festival day. And just continued to meditate on what he was meditating on, and then not let the fact that Abu Bakr just exclaimed something like that. So with those two, back to the first, on the festival day, some Negroes, some blacks, Abyssinians were performing in a mosque. The Prophet said to me, "Do you wish to see them?" Speaking to Aisha, she replied, "Yes." Accordingly, he lifted her up with his own blessed hand, and she looked for so long that he said to her more than once, "Haven't you had enough?" In that particular case, I'm not too sure if she, I want to explain it like that, but it seems like from that particular explanation, it appears as such that whatever she was looking at had captivated her enough to where the Prophet Muhammad had said more than once, "Aisha, haven't you had enough? Aisha, can we go? Aisha, can you hear? Aisha, huh?" To further paint that picture. And the second one, to kind of make a comparison, because the first one shows a slight distraction. He didn't say whether her focus or her remembrance got broken. Stop for a lot for even mentioning. But that second hadith, one festival day, two girls came to the house and began to play and sing. Prophet came in to lay down on the couch, turning his face away. Presently, Abu Bakr entered, and seeing the girls playing, and he exclaimed, "What? The pipe or the flute song of Satan, music and dance in the Prophet's house?" Whereupon the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, turned and said, "Leave him alone, Abu Bakr, for today is a festival day." And it was indifferent to him. So there wasn't anything even there for the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, for it to even be judged as something halal or haram. May have been dancing with. If it was halal, then we would have that in hadith. Or if he would have turned the girls away so he could lay down, that would also probably have wound up in this hadith, but he didn't. He just laid down and looked the other way. Muslim teaches us to lower our gaze when there are women around anyway. So why in the world would the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, be looking at two other girls that are dancing or performing for Aisha in the house? It's indifferent to him, right? Now, I like the fact that Imam Ghazali used a particular word, performing in that first hadith and playing in the second hadith. And I think it's just us in here now. The Arab will tell you that the black people were playing in the mosque. There's another hadith that talks about the Abyssinians playing outside the mosque, or Abyssinians and Ethiopians playing outside the mosque with their spears, like dancing or doing, some particular, cultural dance and singing or reciting or chanting mantra or zikr. And it's quoted in this one that Prophet Muhammad may or may not have been seen tapping his foot to whatever that beat or the cadence was, but wasn't really paying it any attention at all. The Sahaba comes up and asks him about why these people are playing, like dancing, to try to downplay the fact that it wasn't necessarily just a simple dance to music to make it look haram. it was a cultural performance, or it was an observation, or it was a holiday, right? Because they're obviously celebrating something. It's some kind of observance going on. And the beautiful thing about this hadith is that we get to see something that, if we know it's a observance going on, it's probably a religious or cultural observance, or something's going on up there, right? But the Prophet Muhammad in both of those hadiths say that this is a festival day. This is our festival day. This is our Eid. You don't say. I know when we were growing up, Grandma told us not to run around and play in the church. When you're running around acting no donkey in the church like that, Grandma will whip you so fast in the church, and you'll never even know which way that switch came from. Why would them Arabs describe them like people as playing in the mosque and playing on the outside of the mosque to downplay and give weight to the teachings that music and dancing are haram? In these examples, we get a chance to see that Prophet knew that those girls were singing and dancing near him, but he didn't allow it to get in the way of his remembrance of Allah, nor his peace, nor him acting in accordance to the sunnah, or the way of life that we were supposed to be following, to the example. Then comes in Abu Bakr, and Abu Bakr lets it bother him. But then Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, tells it not to let him bother him because it's indifferent. Islam is mathematics, and mathematics is Islam. Just a few years ago, I don't know if anyone remembers about the Christian, Muslim, and Jewish holidays falling all within a couple of days of each other in the same week. We had the last 10 days of Ramadan, was Good Friday, and I think another Jewish or Hebrew holiday at the exact same time. Now, every 33 years, all three of those holidays almost perfectly line up again. So in like another 29 or 30 years or so, all three of those holidays are also going to line up again. And I do believe that these particular hadiths we're talking about, that particular point in time, Abyssinians weren't Muslims. At that point in time, they were probably like Optic, the Aksum Empire, or probably had just been, converted to Christianity, possibly. And the fact that they were doing a traditional performance and reciting they were reciting the zikr, they were reciting a very, very important one. The tradition is that a Sahaba walked up and asked Prophet Muhammad, what are they reciting? Like, what are they singing? Or what are they singing while they're dancing? Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said, they're reciting Muhammadun Abdun Salihun. Muhammad is Abdun, a servant, Salihun, righteous. They were doing salawat. Muhammadun Abdun Salihun, and however that cadence was going, a particular measure that we use to determine rhythm with music, however that was, their dancing matched it, and what they were reciting matched it. And the Prophet Muhammad knew this. He didn't get all, enamored that, oh my goodness, these people are sending prayers upon me. He just let it happen. He was indifferent. Imam Ghazali goes in on the next couple of pages or so about some examples as to how it can be noticeably something that, I don't know, no music, no dance, right? Because not necessarily passing over, but the cases where music and dancing rouse into a flame, evil desires already dormant in the heart, meaning, good Lord, evil desires dormant in the heart. So someone let the nafs rise up 3 stations of the soul and make it to the heart. Where music and dancing rouses up into a flame, evil desires already dormant in the heart, we come to cases where they are quite unlawful. and in other cases, quite lawful, as long as the desires that make it up are not evil. So people who go to celebrate the Hajj in song thus incite others to go on pilgrimage. And minstrels, or people who recite, whose music and songs stir up martial ardor in the breasts, it makes the heart light. They stir up martial ardor in the breast. It makes the heart light of their auditors, the people that are listening, and it incites them to fight against the infidels. Things like that are okay, because in this case, fighting against the infidels is the person doing jihad al-nafs, making sure the ego doesn't rise up to the heart. They purify that, and they continue to rise up the seven stations of the soul. Because we get references when Hajj comes around. Just Google Murid, Bifal, Hajj, decide, random 4 words. What you're probably going to wind up seeing is a video of a Murid or a Bifal going on the Hajj, and there'll be a black man either with dreadlocks or a bald head. Just Muslim, obviously, but you can tell he's from West Africa, reciting qasides, songs, and poems from Sheikh Ahmed Bamba. And in the background, you're going to see all the other Muslims that are on that same journey, pilgrimage, Umrah, or on the Hajj. And some of those Muslims are going to stop, and they're going to wait, and they're going to listen to what this brother is reciting. Every now and then you might catch one of them swaying back and forth like, Yallahu bil Mustafa Sindiri Ya Allah wa bi Khalilika Ibrahim Ya Allah. But at that point, the opening line to Sindiri, that's Quran and Sunnah, praise, exhortation, salawat, and an opening to Sheikh Abdul Bamba calling the names of all of the prophets that are listed in the Quran next. Just because that person is swaying back and forth to the rhythm of how this brother is reciting Sindiri doesn't make that dancing, and it doesn't make that Quran. Even from where some of us came from, I know I can't be the only one that came from the Southern Baptist Church or any of those, but open your Bibles to Psalms 100, where it says, make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands. Better sing that aside. Serve the Lord with gladness. Kidma. Serve the Lord with gladness and come before his presence with singing. If they believe that the Kaaba is the Baytullah, the house of Allah, that Murid brother that's over there reciting those qasides is coming to the presence with singing, knowing that the Lord, he is God, Allahu, la ilaha illahu, and it is he that has made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pastures. Goodness gracious. Now, similarly, like, not to break away from the qasides, not to break away from the beautiful recitations, Imam Ghazali says mournful music, and we'll bring that to today's time. Some of the stuff on the radio today, which excites sorrow for sin and failure in religious life, like some of the songs that are on the radio today, that do not remind people of Allah, that do not remind people of God, Buddha, Chukwu, Nkulu, Nkulu, Olodumare, or whatever name they want to call the savior figure. This nature was, he says, the music of David. Ouch. That's a bruise that might cause an abrasion. I'll have to dive into that particular one on a recorded Zoom meeting. But the dirges, or the people who do this to increase sorrow, are not lawful, is what he's getting at. The mournful type of music that they might play at a funeral is not to make you feel even sadder. There are people that are there that are already sad. It's just to make sure that you stay where you're at and hopefully start to rise back up as we continue this right for this beloved one of ours that's passed. Because after you walk out of the church, you're not going to hear that sorrowful. Not going to hear that music anymore. But people who do that to increase that sorrow, to rile someone up in that moment for the dead, are not lawful. Or in today's terms, people that intentionally put out music with repetitive terms that tell us to do a lot of things that I can't even say out loud on a Zoom call with a bunch of Muslims in a Sufi school with Cheikh Imam's name on it, astaghfirullah. It said in the Quran, despair not over what you have lost. Right? Despair not over the fact that not listening to those types of music that we can now tell that are haram versus a halal type, depending on what it is, what it says, what it puts in the person, and what the person exudes. Right? Don't despair over what you have lost. On the other hand, joyful music like wedding music, music that you might play at a feast, or today's terms, a cookout, and you get to see your family just having a good time. Otherwise, all of us would be in our respective places not having a good time together. Right? So the fact that there's some music playing, and my uncle and my aunt and cousin, my mama and my brother, and everybody's in the front yard dancing, it's indifferent at that particular moment. If that's not remembrance of Allah, I don't know what is. The light inside every single heart that's dancing at that moment is enlivened because they get to see their other family members having fun, regardless of the fact that they're dancing and there's music playing and there's a Muslim there. Hey, it's me. Nah, the last parts he gets into are just the purely religious uses of music and dancing. And we get to talk about the Sufis, right? Who by this means of types of religious and spiritual dance, we stir up in ourselves, or Sufis stir up in themselves, a greater love towards Allah. That's already the first intention. And by means of music that they use to stir up that greater love for Allah, towards Allah, we often obtain some spiritual visions and ecstasies. Goodness gracious, if you recite one of those long weirds right before you go to sleep, and good Lord, ain't no telling where you might wind up at and who you might see up there. Their heart in that condition becomes as clean as silver in the flame of a furnace. Imam Ghazali says it attains a degree of purity that could never be attained by any amount of mere outward actions and austerities, because the Sufi becomes so keenly aware of his relationship to the spiritual world that we don't even have to scroll back up and reference those Zahirites, the exotericists who just look at what's happening on the surface. The Sufi knows that the journey begins on the inside. So whatever they see on the outside is indifferent. It's communion with Allah going on right there. The shell that I just so happen to be in might be dancing to some music. Now, it is not, however, lawful for the aspirant to Sufism to take part in this mystical dancing without the permission of his peer. Well, that's a Far Eastern word. A peer is what we would call a sheikh, a griot or marabou. So what he's saying is it's not lawful for someone that's striving on the path to take parts in higher levels of mystical dancing without the permission or the instruction of his spiritual director. Because there's an example. It's related that Sheikh Abul Qasim Jagani, that when one of his disciples requested to leave the Astaghfirullah, one of his disciples requested to leave. I know there's a teaching in another hour, Sheikh, but I want to leave. There's going to be a dance going on over yonder, and I want to go. The Sheikh tells that this disciple in this particular quote, okay, you can go when this dance happens, but before that, I need for you to keep a strict fast for 3 days, and then I need everybody in the Darrah in the masjid to cook for you all of your favorite food and tempting dishes, everything that you would love to eat. If then, even after all of that, you still prefer to go to the dance, then you can take part in it. If you want to go do something that you know goes against what the Sheikh was teaching at that point, Sheikh said, yeah, you can go do it. But here's another practice. Fast from now until 3 days in the future. And when you get ready to break your fast, we're going to cook you all your favorite food. As soon as you get ready to break that fast, we're going to be there for you, boy. It's going to be lit. And if you still want to go to the dance after you realize what you can get by working along the path instead of just going to go have mere outward fun, then yeah, you can go. However, the disciple whose heart is not thoroughly purged through earthly desires or hasn't had jihad on nafs happen, he says, even though this disciple might have attained or obtained some glimpse of the mystic's path, he might have seen a zikr, he might have figured out a name, and he been saying it all day long. It should be forbidden by that particular person's director or sheikh to take part in such dances outward from what the sheikh has prescribed, because they'll do a more harm than good. So what he's saying is, just like going online, right, and finding a random zikr, taking it as a daily practice, or someone from Astaghfirullah crack book says, "Yep, I'm Sheikh. Here, take this zikr and recite it this number of many times at this point in time during the day for these number of many days, and you'll get a whole bunch of wealth and prosperity." But the person keeps on reciting, and they keep on reciting, and they keep on reciting, but they don't realize that they haven't went far enough along the path to know that, wait a minute, this name of Allah that he gave me and the number that he gave me don't match up. I went a little bit too far in the water and I am about to drown. Why am I about to drown? I heard somebody say something about abjad. I hadn't studied it yet, but I'm gonna have to get myself out of this spot and go back to Dar, go back to Sheikh, see if I can study up under him and figure out what it is and do the math. Wait a minute. This name of Allah, he told me to recite this number many times, is only 258. Why did he tell me to recite that name of Allah 311 times? Let me do the abjad for this fake Sheikh's name and see if wait a minute. Every zikr I've been doing has been being sent to that person because went a little too far on the path, or might not have overcome a particular part of the four stations of the soul to be able to actually overcome enemies in the practice. So even if something is off, you already have a military for it. Right? You already have a fortress of light around you. So falling off into a high level practice, if a person doesn't already have things to get them there, may do more hurt than harm, is what he's saying. But people who say, man, them Sufis are crazy, have you seen them online yelling and jumping around and spinning in circles of astaghfirullah? Imam Ghazali says those who deny the reality of the ecstasies and the other spiritual experiences of the Sufis, they merely betray their own narrow-mindedness and shallow insight. There's some allowance, however, we gotta give them something. Like he said, something has to be made for them. because it is kind of difficult to believe in the reality of certain states of mind, which no one has a personal experience for other than the one that experienced it, as it is for a blind man to understand the pleasure of looking at green grass and wanting running water, or for a child to comprehend the pleasure of exercising sovereignty or being a mighty ruler of a nation. A wise man, though, he himself may have no experience of those states. He might not have ever popped out of the body, might not have ever astral traveled. When someone else is speaking about those things, he won't deny their reality, Imam Ghazali says. Or what mistake can be greater than he who denies the reality of a thing merely because he himself has not experienced it? Of such people, it is written in the Quran, it says, those who have not the guidance will say, this is a manifest imposture. Or those who have not had the experience are going to say, no, bro, you didn't leave your body and go see Serene Falu and Sheikh Sufi. It's Astaghfirullah. As regards to the esoteric poetry, in our case, these qasads, these beautiful poems from Sheikh Ahmed Bamba, which are recited in Sufi gatherings, he says, and to the people who sometimes make an objection about it or say that that's just too much. We have to remember that when in such poetry, mention is made of two things, either a separation from or a union with the beloved. If there's a separation from, there's a longing for the union. So in both of those, the beloved, Allah, Muhammad as the wasila and the way to Allah, is in that moment and that experience with that particular Sufi. And that Sufi is an adept in the love of God. He applies such expressions as separation or union with him to give himself an experience that anyone on the outside can't give him. Similarly, he says dark locks are taken to signify the darkness of unbelief, like a poetic term. But the brightness of the face is the light of the faith and the drunkenness of the Sufi's ecstasy. And then he quotes a Sufi poem and says, thou mayest measure out thousands of measures of wine, but till thou drink it, no joy is thine. Thou mayest measure out thousands of measures of wine, but till thou drink it, no joy is thine. Don't forget now, these are Sufis and these are Muslims. They're not talking about actual wine, get you drunk wine. It's symbolic. But what he's saying is one can read as many books as they can about whatever the particular topic is. You can compile as many books on this and that and meditation and astral traveling and this particular part of the dimension. But unless the person does the practices and actually has the experience on what it feels like to do that, this medium, just like the music and dance is a medium, then they'll never truly know anything about them, because the teaching is in the experience, not necessarily in the black words on the white paper. They may tell you how to start, but now that's just a strike, a flick of the flint that was in the heart at the very beginning of the chapter, and now it's starting to engulf and shine light through the polished windows of the heart, so these attributes of Allah can shine forward. Now, in regards to some people that hear the Sufis, he says that they might be slightly in danger of blasphemy in their reply, depending on what they say and how they say it. Because in this example, Imam Ghazali says that if a person applies verses of which he hears to or about God, for instance, to a person, astaghfirullah, such as this verse, you are a Muslim, but you different. Thou art changed from thy former inclination. That's a verse from the Quran that came from Allah down to us. That isn't anything that was that the human themselves can say, because the human themselves isn't the Allah. Like Sheikh Sleepy said, it's impossible for me to be Allah, but it's not impossible for Allah to be me. So I can't try to apply that perspective to anyone or anybody else in regards to that. So you can't apply those types of outward projections to Allah, the inward being, who cannot change, because Allah is Al-Ahad, As-Samad, Lam Yalid wa Lam Yulad wa Lam Yakun Lahu Kufuwan Ahad. The source doesn't necessarily change. That light on the inside of the heart that this Sufi is flaming with, the spinning around in the circles, La ilaha illallah, or reciting qasidas at the top of his lungs, or playing them whenever there might be one dropped in the WhatsApp group. There's more and more of those windows that are being polished, and that light is shining forth. So just like God, Allah, the light, the Nur Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we are also shining only as a reflection of what we can embody in that process. So what he's saying is, in this comparison, that Sufi's doing it all on the inside. However that body's moving on the outside, it's just the body moving on the outside. What's going on the inside? Yes, what's going on the inside isn't necessarily bound by what the person sees on the outside. This thing on the outside changes. So if a person's God is bound by things that change, like time, space, and matter, then I might need to start for a lot. That person might need to reevaluate this being that they're calling God, if their God can be bound by things like change and time and space and matter. Now, regarding some adepts, he says, that get to that state, regarding some adepts, it's related that they attain such a degree of ecstasy that they lose themselves in God. It's a literal extinction. Fana fi Allah. Ain't no more you. Such was the case with this particular example. Sheikh Abu Hassan Nouri, who heard a particular verse from a qasida or a poem recited, he fell in such an ecstatic condition, and in that state while he's just the Islamic Holy Ghost. I guess that's how you can, he's in a howl. We call it a howl, like a mystical state where it's all internal. You don't really know what the body's doing. This particular person comes up on a field full of stalks of newly cut sugarcane, which he was running through and yelling and reciting this verse that he just heard, to the point to where his feet were wounded and bleeding. And not long afterwards, they say Abu Hassan Nouri expired, a literal extinction in Allah. So not to make that seem macabre or anything, but he ran around so long, he lost so much blood from stepping on sugarcane with his feet. He had an experience out there, right? He had an experience out there from hearing a verse from a poem that had a particular rhythm or cadence to it and might have sounded kind of musical and poetic. And he ran off running and reciting it and dancing, and didn't even realize he ran into a sugarcane field and was messing his feet up the whole time while he was in that state of remembering how that verse just resonated with him. And when he got to that point to where he felt and he matched that resonation, he was able to perfectly mirror that resonation on the inside. Probably had to come to a complete stop. Peace, be still. But I can imagine, y'all, astaghfirullah, buddy looked down and saw his feet were bloody at that point, and he just remembered, I'm not the body. I'm not the mind. I'm not these feet. I'm not this blood that's coming out of these feet. I'm not the hair on the head. I'm going to take my body back home. I'm going to take care of it now that I know what it is and what is in it. So ran about until his feet were wounded and bleeding, and not long afterwards expired. He became extinct in Allah. At that point, no, he probably didn't realize or even care that people thought that he was a body, because he was so caught up in a state to where he didn't feel what was going on with his literal body, running around on angled and cut sugarcane spikes. Didn't feel a thing. Sheikh Abul Hassan Nuri in this particular example wasn't even in the body. But when he came back to it and realized that that was really him, that was out of it, and the body isn't him, but Nafiala. In such cases, Imam Ghazali says some people have supposed that there occurs an actual descent of deity or God into humanity. But this would be as great as a mistake as that one who, having for the first time seen his reflection in a mirror, should suppose that somehow or the other he had been incorporated with the mirror. It's another him over there. How did I get over there? Or those kind of reddish and white little hues and colors you see around the bezel of the mirror. Those are inherent qualities within the mirror. Those reflections of light in that mirror are inherent qualities in the mirror. No. States of ecstasy in which the Sufis fall into vary according to the emotions that predominate them: energy in motion, love, fear, desire, repentance, etc. He says, but these states, as if we have mentioned above, are only the result, or not, wait a minute, are often the result of not only hearing verses of the Quran, like the brother who heard this particular verse and has never really vibrated with him like that before, and he just went into just went into a mental state, not only of hearing verses of the Quran, but Imam Ghazali says you also get that from exotic and erotic poetry. Some have objected to the reciting of poetry, astaghfirullah, but I'm gonna recite me a Sheikh Abu Bamkaside every single day, inshallah, until I run out of breath in my body to recite them with. But they objected to reciting poetry as well as of the Quran on those occasions. But it should also be remembered that all of the verses of the Quran are not adapted to stir up the emotions. There's some verses of the Quran that are instructive, and there's never really any, you know, some verses of the Quran tell you not to do things. So there's just sometimes not much mystic in some of the verses because they're direct instructions. So, for instance, he says, as that which commands that a man should leave his mother the sixth part of his property and his sister the half, or that which orders that a widow must wait 4 months after the death of her husband before becoming married to another man. So what he's saying is somebody walks by and hears me reciting that particular verse of the Quran, and it's just, oh my God, this is beautiful. And he falls into a howl, not knowing that what I just recited was, if I leave my mother a sixth part of my property to go to her, and to my sister half of my property, or that which orders that a widow must wait 4 months after the death of her husband must before becoming married to or espoused to another man. We kind of have to be careful. Because if a person falls into a howl, if someone's reciting that particular verse, he just might not know Arabic or might not know Quran. Or if he does, he might be putting on a stalker a lot. Now, an example as to how you can tell it's real. Like whatever is going on, whatever kaside, whatever song, whatever music, whatever dance, and something just lights up on the inside, and the person just they just catch it. They're in the moment. Play Sindidi every day, but every day play a different video of Sindidi. I can't remember the exact video of this, but me and Cheikh were sitting in the living room and watching the video of the brother sitting in the circle reciting Sindidi. And about a third of the way through, we noticed there was this one brother that was he was still reciting, but you could tell he was just about to pop. He was about to pop. He was trying to hold it in, trying to get to the end of the Kasai. And he's just until he was just no more, completely gone, completely gone. He's not even reciting the Kasai anymore. He's screaming and reciting words that he picks up from the other brothers that are still reciting. Brother is in a howl. He is gone. And about a minute or two later, you see some people kind of come up and pull brother out of the circle. Circle fills in, and they keep on going. That brother, the vibration that was in that place, with all of them brothers reciting Sindidi, being surrounded by all their Murid brothers, Murid sisters, Bifal brothers, and Yaifal sisters, and everyone in there is on the exact same vibration, whether they're Yallahu Mustafa, or they're just sitting still while they're reciting. Everyone is enjoying the rhythm, the cadence, the metric, the mathematics it took to compose the poem in the Kasai. They're meditating on the verses in the Kasai, but that brother was doing all of it at the exact same time. And out of there, coach. Allow. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing haram at all about that particular occurrence of a person being involved in music and dance and having an experience because of the type of music and or the type of dance. Nothing wrong with it at all. Now, this next one it's a perfect reason as to why I'm thankful. Alhamdulillah, that with some of the poems and the qasaids and teachings we get from Sheikh Ahmed Bamba, we don't have to read them in Wolof. We don't have to read them in Arabic. It's preferred to study and then try to learn it as best we can. But to even recognize the letters, to read it slowly, it's an important thing to do, because Imam Ghazali says that another reason for the use of poetry, as well as the use of the Quran on these types of occasions, is that the people sometimes become so familiar with the Quran, many of them even knowing it by heart, Hafiz, right, that the effect of it has been dulled by a constant kind of mundane repetition. One cannot be always quoting new verses of the Quran as one can of poetry, right? Especially reading in an English translation, because imagine how deep some of these poems and qasaids are that we read from Sheikh Ahmed Bamba when we get them from English. With the slightest working knowledge of Arabic, those words wake up to I can't tell y'all what I just saw. Those words wake up to a whole new level that can only be understood within, but can only get so deep and so far with them with the English. So once, for example, Imam Ghazali pulls some wild Arabs or Bedouins were hearing the Quran for the first time, and they were very strongly moved by it. So Abu Bakr said to them, "We were once like you, but our hearts have grown hard," meaning that in this particular example, that the Quran loses some of its effect on those that are overly familiar with it. For the same reason, the Caliph Omar used to command the pilgrims to Mecca to leave it after the Hajj, right? Don't just kind of lollygag and kind of hang around the holy place in the sacred precinct. When you finish your Hajj, you finish with your Hajj, is what Umar is saying in this example of Caliph Umar. And his reason why, when he was telling this to people who kind of question, what do you mean? Like we just got finished, and now you're saying, all right, let's go. He said, I fear if you grow too familiar with the holy city, the all of it will depart from your hearts. If we get finished with the Hajj and we go around and we visit every single inch and nook and cranny of the place, just, kind of going around as much as it might be in our hearts to want to do that, right? Don't have the experience of the people there. Have the experience of everyone around you doing the exact same thing, dressed exactly the same. You don't know who's a doctor, a lawyer, a rich person, a poor person, or any of that, because everyone has on their frock. And when you get finished with that experience, don't get caught up with the building around the area where you had the experience. And Mara's saying, remember the experience and take that with you, so that with that, the all of the beauty of what you experienced will never leave your heart, because you've taken that with you. What you experienced is still with you. What you saw is just what you saw. Now, this one hits. There is more of something pertaining to the light and frivolous, at least in the eyes of the common people, in the use of singing and musical instruments such as the pipe or flute and the drum. It's like they took the drums from us when, astaghfirullah, we read it, Imam Ghazali, but the pipe, flute, and drum. And it is not benefiting that the majesty of the Quran should be even temporarily associated with those things. So now, if you, what he's saying is, don't recite Quran over your favorite rap instrumental or astaghfirullah, because the way the Quran was written is that with the proper vocalizations of it and the pronunciations, just you reciting the Quran are the horns and the flutes and the pipes. Pronouncing some of the hard letters are the drums that are associated with the inherent frequency, pitch, rhythm that's within the Quran itself. The Quran itself is its own music, right? So music and things that are astaghfirullah, sing-songy, or that may rhyme or have a rhythm and metric to them. If music is haram and things that match what it takes to build up what we call music, then these types of people that are telling Sufis that, hey, y'all shouldn't be listening to music, tell them to start reciting the Quran because it rhymes. Tell them to start reciting their Quran because it sounds sing-songy, astaghfirullah, and inshallah they may go inward and be like, ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين. Wait a minute, it is. Astaghfirullah, brother. Continue. Turn the music up, actually. Turn the music up. Now, the mystics, he says, that have other features that the Zahirites might look at a bit different, right? Are the bodily contortions, the flailings or tearing of clothes with which they are sometimes accompanied, those mental states. Now, no matter how wild the person may seemingly look like they are getting in their dancing or their zikr and their remembrance in that state, if those are the result of genuine ecstatic conditions, Imam Ghazali says that there is nothing to be said against them. But if they're self-conscious and they're deliberate on the part of those who wish to appear as adepts, then they're merely acts of hypocrisy. In any case, the more perfect adept is he who controls himself until he is absolutely obliged to give vent to his feelings. So those that came to the alchemy of the butterfly retreat, right? We were in the living room and everyone was sitting down in a circle, and we were about 200 or 300 la ilaha illallahs in, and we were all still sitting down on the floor in the circle, and then one more la ilaha illallah later, Sheikh Sufi just boop, he just popped up and he stood on his feet and he started la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. And what happened at that point is so beautiful because Imam Ghazali speaks on it in the book, is that everybody else popped up and did the exact same thing. The exact same thing. Now, at the end, he says, related to a group of disciples or a youth that were following Sheikh Junaid, that on hearing singing commence in an assembly of the Sufis, this particular disciple, this particular youth, he couldn't restrain himself. He just couldn't hold it in. And as soon as these Sufis started to recite qasids, he just started to shriek and cry out in ecstasy. But in this particular example, Sheikh Junaid turned to him and said, if you do that again, don't remain in my company, don't remain in my presence. Qasad just began and he's already screaming. So after that, the youth, that particular young disciple, remembered that experience and that teaching from Sheikh Junaid. So he would always try to restrain himself on such occasions. He would, every time the Sufis would start to recite certain qasids and poems, he would always try to restrain himself at the beginning, right? Always try to restrain himself at the beginning because he knew as soon as he heard Yallahu bil Mustafa, he was gonna start screaming. So he would start to kind of try to hold it in and try to be at peace a little bit longer and get deeper and deeper into the qasad. And in this story, he says, but at last, one day, his emotions were so powerfully stirred that after a long, forcible repression of them, he uttered a shriek or he yelled, and then he died. But not like died, but Nafi Sheikh. So Nafi Sheikh, completely extinct in the teachings of the Sheikh. Because remember, Sheikh Junaid seen him start yelling 3 words into a qasad, and he said, if you can't restrain yourself, no, don't, no. So from then forward, this particular disciple, still on the topic of music and dancing, was working to maintain and hold himself in the proper manner in regards to whatever music and dancing was going on. And he did that so much to a point to where he finally got to a state to where he just couldn't hold it in anymore. And then he finally let go. Now and then he died part is that old him, right? The old him that couldn't hold it in. The old him that was yelling at Yallahu. We didn't even finish the first line of Sindidi. That old him died. There's a new one still here that is worked himself up and gotten so stronger on the inside that he's able to maintain himself and his shrieks and his yells to be in the moment and feel the qasad, really feel the qasad, meditate on the qasad, let them get past the halfway point, you know, and do this so much until you get to a point to where you no longer have to worry about letting loose at the beginning. You know, you no longer have to worry about doing something that might be seen as wrong with that, bro. You know? So after this experience, that disciple immersed himself into the teachings that his Sheikh gave him, and to the point that he himself no longer existed as he was. Now he only exists as he is. So to conclude, In holding these types of assemblies, Imam Ghazali says, regard must be had to time and place, and that no spectators come from unworthy motives, like no preconceived notions. We already know. No belief with the Sufi who's experienced outside. Right? Don't have to believe in a being that you've experienced. Now you know it's what ihsan is, but those who participate in them should at first sit in silence, not looking at one another, but keeping their heads bent at prayer and remembrance and concentrating their minds on God, just like we were in the living room at the Alchemy of the Butterfly Retreat, sitting around on the floor in a circle, heads bent over, and everyone's kind of cadence gets up and get a little bit louder, and people move a little bit more, and next thing you know, you see your shake up just going in with the zikr. I'm down with you, Sheikh. I'm down with you, and everybody else gets up. And this is the perfect example Imam Ghazali says for the end here. I think he might have showed up at the retreat. Those who participate in those types of circles should first sit in silence, not looking at one another, keep their heads bent as at prayer, like we are in prayer, when doing the zikr, when doing the practice, and concentrating our minds on God. And if at a certain point in time when we've gotten deep into that and someone pops and that energy spills out into the room, what could amplify that energy more than other people reciting the same thing that made that energy pop in the room? So everyone gets up and yells, la ilaha illallah. And at that point, there's a living room full of Sufis clapping, stomping their feet, reciting la ilaha illallah to the clap and to the stomp, and dancing to the clap and the stomp. What was haram in any of that? Nothing. Nothing at all. Because from beginning to the experience and even afterwards, all of it was solely for Allah. All of it was solely from Allah within the hearts of the people that were there doing it together for the same reason, for the remembrance of Allah. Because Imam Ghazali says, if any one of them stands up in a genuine state of ecstasy in these types of practices, all the rest should stand up with him. Get up and dance and do the zikr with your sheikh. If anyone's turbans fall off, all the others should lay their turbans down too. Alhamdulillah. Although these matters that he described are comparative novelties in Islam, he says, and they have not been received from the first followers of the Prophet, because remember, there's no hadith about some of the things Sufis do, but there's also no hadith about it being wrong. We have to remember that all of those things that others may look at as novelties of Sufis or mystics are not forbidden, Imam Ghazali says, but only those that directly contravene the law, only those that go against the Quran, and only those that go against the Sunnah, are those that can be determined or deemed forbidden. For instance, the Tarawih, or the night prayer, it was first instituted by the Caliph Umar. So the Tarawih, or the night prayer, was instituted by the Caliph Umar. The silsila, or the chain of transmission of that particular doing, ends with Caliph Umar. Sufi secret. Right? So the Tarawih, or that night prayer during the month of Ramadan, isn't something that we get directly from the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. It's something we get from the Caliph Umar. But since it wasn't directly from the Prophet Muhammad, does that also make that haram? Astaghfirullah. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said, live with each man according to his habits and his disposition. Meet them where they at. Therefore, it is right to fall in with usages that please people when non-conformity would vex them, and a personal one. Of course, we're Muslim. We don't celebrate any holidays. Don't celebrate any holidays. However, because I know the feeling in the heart and the brightness on the face of my family members on December the 24th and December the 25th is going to be so bright if my black ass just shows up, right? Just because I'm a Muslim and that I don't have to show up with no gifts. I don't have to sing Noel, and Merry Christmas and all those. I don't have to participate in any of that. My intention can be to go and to have an experience with my family during a point in time where they're all coming to do the exact same thing. And when that light shines from their face and reflects from their hearts, that's the light of Allah. And at that point, I'm not even celebrating Christmas. I'm just in a living room full of Allah. Alhamdulillah. So in regards to music and dancing in Islam, that was a shorter chapter than most. Does anyone have any questions in regards to or any experiences with those two topics, like music and dancing in Islam? I know we come from communities where music means a lot to us, right?
Yeah, peace, Sheikh. Peace. Yeah, it is a touchy subject because just recently, I think it was the Friday before last, I was at Juma and the Imam was speaking on music, and he was telling us that we shouldn't be listening to any music at all. I mean, of course, he was mentioning like rap music because you know as we know that's off the chain, I guess, with the lyrics they got nowadays. So, but yeah, yeah, that did kind of relate to that. So I just wanted to share my piece.
I definitely appreciate it, because I know this happened to a couple of us, and not to look down on or talk down on the viewpoint of the people that are delivering the message to us that way. Just know that, like Sheikh Sufi says, Islam is revealed in stages, successive stages. There's 7 stages of the soul before we get up to this perfection with Allah. So, in the mosque setting, it's probably best to talk about it like that. Just to be safe. In Senegal, there's a saying, "Shariat Mogana war," and in Wolof, that means it's safer with the Shariat. So if we were in the mosque setting, like if all of us came down for a retreat, we went to my local mosque and it let us have a little speaking or a lecture in there, it will have to be Quran and Sunnah, Quran and Sunnah, regardless of what we know on the outside, or regardless of if we was just jumping around doing la ilaha illallah in my living room like a bunch of madmen. When we go to the mosque to have whatever experience it is, start for I don't necessarily have to know that, nor should we do it in there, or just to keep it Islamic and safe, interject or go against it, because there's always a hadith that can get pulled to seemingly kind of justify a thing. Just like the ones Imam Ghazali pulls in this chapter, there's also some other hadiths, like depending on how you depending on how you cherry pick them, they can kind of be made to look like, oh, nope, it says it right here. Nope, this hadith, this one, nope, this one, nope, haram. But if you pull up the Sahih Bukhari hadith book, it's over 2,000 pages, over 2,000 pages of hadith. And sometimes, bro, I'll just sit there and type in a keyword and search it to see how many times it shows up in the hadith. And every now and then you'll bump into some of those like that. But then you see some like these that Imam Ghazali pulls, where we have examples like them Ethiopians dancing in the mosque and outside the mosque were indifferent to the Prophet Muhammad. They were over there dancing and singing. He didn't say, I want to go, dance and sing, So, like Sheikh Sufi says, it's sometimes best to kind of be the dumbest one in the room. I don't talk about Sufism when I go to the mosque because I know they're going to teach Islam at the level of Islam, right? And and not to talk up or to lift any one or people up over the other, but it's in the Quran. It's also around the Sufi school logo. We have Islam, Iman, and Ihsan. So music and dance can be looked at from three different levels within the teachings, from an Islamic perspective, which is most of the times a orthodox or a religious perspective. Iman is, I won't say a little bit deeper, but you may start to get some exegesis and they expound on some teachings a little bit more. But still, it's something more to these black words on paper. I got to learn this language, or got to listen to some teachers really break this thing down. And you bump into a Sheikh Sufi and bump into a Sheikh Afri Bombay International Sufi School and come into teachings with that third one, Ihsan, where there's knowledge, there's God body, God consciousness, there's union with Allah. You now know, right? So the fact that you didn't say anything against it or like kind of pull anybody to the side and try to justify music in the mosque setting was actually the perfect thing to do. And even more so, brother, in that case, you still remembered it as an example. So now it's that particular teaching can now be a zikr. If you're around some brothers that you know are just Muslim, nothing deep, no esoterics, no Sufism. If you're around brothers like that, you kind of know, you know, how to talk Islamically, or how to talk about Quran or Sunnah, or whether even to mention, Sufism. Probably not. Or if you're hanging around some of the Moorish brothers, you know how we can, you can build with them. Or if we're hanging around us and then the Darrah, then Sheikh Abdul Bamba goes through all three of those levels. But if we're dealing with someone that's just at that first one, that's just at an Islamic understanding of it, alhamdulillah, oh, I understand. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I understand. I appreciate the teaching. Thank you so much. And then get in the car and then drive around the corner from the mosque and then turn the music on. Stop for a while. Just never let the music, like you said, certain types of music that are really kind of put out there to take our mind away from, Allah, to take our mind away from being focused. There's some music out here that, hey, y'all feel, oh, I don't know what these kids listening to these days, to say it like that, because we used to be those kids, whatever we were listening to when we were growing up, the adults then were like, oh, I don't know about that. But now in our day and age, like you just said, brother, there is some music out there that doesn't prompt the person to even have an original thought. There's certain types of music that repeats a lot of debaucherous actions over and over. And with us knowing the science of zikr, right? We repeat positive affirmations, repeating names of Allah, repeating verses from Sheikh Abdul Bamba Kasai's, repeating Quran verses, and all of those are deep, and all of those have meaning that we can apply to ourselves pragmatically to be better. Now, if I run around repeating some of the stuff that I can't even say, you know, what am I, what am I putting within myself that's probably about to start to exude? You know? So in that case, yeah, that type of music, you might as well just say it's wrong. The music that it is put out to make sure that the person cannot have an original thought. The music that makes people feel like they have more of a connection with this video vixen. Now, next week chapter 6, Imam Ghazali goes into another deep one. It's concerning self-examination and the recollection of God, the recollection, collecting again the remembrance of God. So concerning self-examination, examining self, got no self, and then examine self and the reflection of God. That particular chapter has a lot more Quran references because, of course, music and dance, like this chapter, isn't mentioned in the Quran at all. And if all hearts and minds are clear, quick salawat. Hope everyone enjoys the rest of the night, the rising sun tomorrow, and have a successful day until we meet again, inshallah. من الشيطان الرجيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله وهو العلي العظيم الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد الدامر وسلم عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وجل بجاهه حزت لن مداريان بالليل اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد الدامر وسلم عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وحطي بجاهه حويا شيطاني اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد والتوحيد وسلم عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وزدني بجاهه علما في الدارين يفيد اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد الدليل وسلم عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وجلني بجاهه على بصيرة حتى لا أميل سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Parkasering Salihu, Parkasering Salihu, Parkasering Salihu, Parkasering Salihu, Parkasering Salihu, Parkasering Salihu, Parkasering Jeff reads indeed he once a day, Sering Salihu. Until we meet again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May we be blessed and be successful. Inshallah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi barakatuhu. Good night.